So the answer to that is false. All right. Asset protection. We'll start with this. How do we define asset protection? Okay, I've got a lot of calls on that. People are concerned about asset protection. I'm going to ask you why. How do you define asset protection? Ray, how do you define it? What comes to mind when I say asset protection? What are you thinking of? You want to make sure that somebody can't take it from you. Now, who's going to try to take that from you? Okay. So you're afraid that these guys are going to try to take it from you, right? This is an attorney, by the way. Okay, you're afraid that this guy is going to take something from you. So when we talk about asset protection, we're afraid of attorneys coming and taking our assets from us because we get involved in an accident and we're sued. Something you've done. Maybe you're out on the freeway and somebody stopped short and you rear-end them. And now they're going to sue you. Basically what they're going to do is try to find out how much you have before they bring that lawsuit and how much they want to fight. The more you have, the more of an attractive target you become. And you don't want to be on the receiving end of a lawsuit where there's a personal attorney, injury attorney involved, because they're going to go for the jugular. They're going to push and push and push to see how much they can get, because the more you have, the more you stand to lose, the more scared you're going to be. Asset protection at that point in time is not going to work for you. So when we talk about asset protection, what we're looking at, what I'm trying to define is, define it in your own mind. What are we trying to do when we create an entity like an LLC or a living trust? What are we trying to protect? Okay, so I would say we're trying to protect our dinar, okay, our wealth. So we want to protect the dinar, of course, because it has value. It's going to have tremendous value after the RV. So that's one aspect. Anything else comes to mind when I say asset protection? Why did you want to come to this class? Put a name with a face? Boats and cars? Okay, so real estate. So you want to protect that. That's important. You don't want to lose where you live. Okay. What else are we looking to protect assets from? How about this guy? Okay, who's he? That's right. He's got his hand out, looking for money. Okay, so we want to reduce our taxes if we can. Because I firmly believe I know how to spend my money better than the federal government. At least it would appear that way from what they've been doing. So that's a major concern right there. So taxes. Anything else that comes to mind when I say asset protection? No? Okay. Bank accounts. You want to protect your cash. Yeah. Well, let me show you what. This right here is my family. And when I think of asset protection, this is what I think about. So when people say to you, Clint, when you say asset protection, is it money? No, it's not house. It's what would happen to my wife and to my kids if something were to happen to me. That's what I'm concerned about with asset protection. So when I get on a plane and I'm flying back on one of these small little jets, we hit turbulence, I'm not concerned. I mean, most people, when they go somewhere, they hit turbulence in a plane, they're going to think, oh, gosh, what did I leave behind? Who's going to get left behind? Is this all tied up? Is it all protected? My answer to that is yes, it is. My wife would not have to change her standard of living. She wouldn't have to go back to work. She could stay there and continue to raise our children in the manner they've become accustomed to because I have sufficient life insurance on my life. In fact, I got so much, some nights, I sleep with one eye open if I upset her. I'm worth more dead than alive. But I'm serious. One time I was driving with my wife. She goes, how much insurance you got on you now? I said, oh, about $4 million. Really? That much? I don't like that smile. So when we say asset protection, that's what goes through my mind. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. That's everything that I do is so that my children, my wife, are going to be protected. And then my kids, it's all going to get passed down to them. That's the way I was raised. That's what my father had done. Is continuing to do. He always reminds me of that, of course. Why I still have to do free stuff for him. It's just that when I think of it, it's not so much the material. It's the other things in life that I think are extremely important. And so what we're going to be talking about, a lot of it all comes back to this at the end of the day. What we're trying to do is ensure that we leave a legacy for our children, our grandchildren, everybody else, so they don't have to work as hard as we did. Maybe they can utilize their talents in helping other people, which is, something that I think everybody wishes they had more time to do. But it's hard to find that time today because you have to work so much. And it's just to ensure that life is better for everyone in general. And so that's what I look at that's how I define asset protection. All right, so where's the problem? Well, it starts with attorneys, number one. That's why we have to have protection. Look at this right here. This is an actual website. It's called whocanisue.com. If you want to bring a lawsuit, start your picks right there. You can go to this website and they will tell you who you can sue if you want to sue somebody. Now, I've had clients come to these events before, business owners who have been sued under the Americans with Disabilities Act because mirrors were placed too high in their public restroom by 6 inches. And they were held to account for that because somebody in a wheelchair could not see their third button on their shirt when they wheeled themselves up to the sink because they only could see from here up, and they're supposed to be able to see from here up with the mirror if it's placed at the right height. I mean, regulation in this country has gone way, way overboard. Okay, we try to regulate everything, like somehow by over-regulating, we're going to eliminate stupidity. Okay? No, let those people eliminate themselves, and then the problem will eventually solve itself in 3 or 4 generations. Okay? I mean, think about it. When's the last time you had a wood burning kit? You don't anymore because they burn. People couldn't figure that out when they bought them and they brought them home. Well, I got burned. I'm going to sue somebody. Who thought it would burn skin? I thought it would just burn wood. Really, sir? Okay, so we have to put warnings on there. You go to whocanisue.com, Sue Easy. Here's another ridiculous site that should be taken down, but it's out there. If you want to bring a lawsuit, they encourage you to go there. They'll tell you how to get the lawsuit started. If you have a claim, if you don't, we'll find one for you, is how they advertise. Other things like this that I find to be extremely disgusting. Personal injury, Recovery Road, the next exit. Okay, you've been injured through no fault of your own. Call the law offices of William DiPolito and Associates, and we'll get you that just recovery. Now, do people go to these law firms because they read Johnson & Flora Inc. experienced personal injury? Or do their eyes go directly down here? 4.1 million, 3.2 million, lawsuit, lottery. That's what I'm going after. It's all in the numbers. That's why they put their verdicts on there. And you think these firms are reputable? I'll tell you firsthand, they're not. When I was in law school, my very first job was working for a personal injury attorney. When I went to the job board and I saw this posting for William DiPolito and Associates, I said, man, I remember that guy. Where do I remember him from? Oh, I know. When I would come home late at night when I was in high school and I couldn't fall asleep, and I'd turn on the TV, maybe watch it till 1:30 in the morning, and there would be an advertisement for William DiPolito and Associates at 1 o'clock in the morning. What type of law firm advertises at 1 o'clock in the morning? Kind that's looking for hardworking individuals that have to get up at 6 a.m. and go to work? Or the people that don't have a job, they're not looking to do anything the next day? But they're saying to you, hey, you want to claim? You come see us, we'll get you some money. Well, I went to work for them. Why did I go to work for them? Because when I first started in law school, I saw the numbers. We'll pay you $300 a demand letter. So I went to this attorney, I interviewed with him. He says, hey, are you a creative writer? I said, absolutely. I'm taking creative writing right now. I think I am a creative writer because that's one of the required law school classes. He said, well, great. I've got a job for you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this client file and I want you to put together a 10-page demand letter outlining how our client was injured and how their life has been affected as a result of the injuries they sustained in the lawsuit that was a direct result of the defendant's actions. And we're going to serve that on the defendant and his insurance company and look for money. And we're going to get paid. Well, I'm going to get paid and you're going to get $300. And I said, okay, well, how many of these can I write? He goes, how many would you like to write? You got 10 of them for me? So I said, $3,000. Here I am, first-year law student, first semester, making $3,000 for writing 10 letters. He goes, I got 10 files for you. He goes, let's start off with the first one, though, to see how you do. So he gave me the file. Let me borrow this right here. And the file was like this thick. It contained 2 pages. Looked at it. You got more? He goes, you don't need any more. I said, I don't. Really? He goes, yeah. You have the accident report and you have my notes. I said, but you want me to put together 10 pages? He goes, I know I do. And you said you were a creative writer. So if we put 2 and 2 together, we've got 10 pages, do we not? I said, are you serious? You want me to make stuff up? He goes, we don't make anything up. We just tell the truth in this law firm. And so what I want you to do is put yourself in our client's position. How would your life be affected if you sustained similar injuries in a similar accident? What do you think would happen to you? I said, all right, so I'm going to put myself in their position. I'm going to write how my life would have been affected in the third person, and you want me to do what with that? He goes, you bring it back to my office, I'll pay you $300, and I'll go through to make sure, I'll talk with the client to make sure this has actually occurred, and I'll make any changes that are required. And so that's what I did. First year of law school, I would write those things, and I was making really good money because I saw it as a cash machine. All I had to do was put out 10 pages, and I got $300. And so my first year of law school, I don't know what I made, maybe $36,000 that year, close to it, something. No, not that much. But I made a fair amount of money just writing demand letters. And the point is that eventually I quit doing it. Any idea why? What did you say? Conscience? You've never applied to law school. You've never applied to law school either. If you put you're an honest attorney with a conscience, you're not getting in. Okay? They're looking for just the opposite, right? You have any morals? No? Good, come on in, join the club. No, it's because I lost creativity. I couldn't do it any longer. I didn't know what to write. I found myself taking the old ones and rewriting them. In fact, I got bored is what happened. And then I decided to go do just the opposite. I decided to go work for the prosecutor's office. And I tell you, you think that's any better? There are just as many of the screwballs in the prosecutor's office as there was on the other side of the fence. That's why I decided to do asset protection, because I couldn't get along with anybody. So this is a real problem. And why did I say that? Because the prosecutors that I worked for, they were allowed to moonlight. They could do other stuff so long as it did not conflict with their jobs as a prosecutor. And the 4 gals that I worked for, they did probate and personal injury. And they looked at me and they said, hey, didn't you used to write these things? I said, yeah. She goes, so you're a creative writer, huh, Clint? I go, God, here we go again. And I saw that go, nothing's changed. I mean, you just put a different name on them, they're still the same person underneath that coat. They're looking to make a buck off of somebody else or the insurance companies. And what is the cost to society? We allow it because we don't want to serve on jury duty. We don't want to send a message. We can't get Congress to change the laws to make it that if you bring a lawsuit and you lose, you pay the other side's attorney's fees and costs. I could sue you tomorrow. Doesn't cost me anything other than filing fees, and I could sue you and make it last for 3 years. And Michelle has an attorney that she pays $50,000 to, and then I lose in court. Who really lost? She did, because she spent $50,000. She didn't win. She lost. She cannot recover those fees from me. That's the way our legal system is set up. We don't want to discourage lawsuits because the thought process is, oh, the downtrodden then would not have a voice. Well, they got too much of a voice right now because there's attorneys out there that troll for them. Here's another one, same thing. This was an advertisement. Both these are out of my bar journal that I receive every month, which is a useless magazine to pay for. All right, so another thing, other challenges, how to protect your wealth from a tax standpoint. Okay, there's ways to do it. Most people don't understand it. Brace yourself. The chances of being audited are rising. So if it happens, you hear what to do and what not to do. This was from the Wall Street Journal last year. There's another one from the LA Times talking about taxation. Here's the IRS's or the government's response to the deficit. The way we're going to cure the deficit is not by raising taxes right now. Is it by cutting spending? Oh, sure it is. We're going to cut $8 billion. That's a step in the right direction towards $13 trillion. How you get there, I don't know. But anyways, they're going to enforce the current tax code. And the way they're going to go about doing this is by increasing audits, and you've already seen it start. They believe that there are a set number of individuals out there who underreport their income or do not report their income, and that if they were able to capture that income, it would generate so many more billions of dollars a year in tax revenue that we don't have to do anything different. All we have to do is get those people who are not paying to start paying into the system, and we'll solve a lot of this problem just through forced compliance. So let's just start auditing people. And that's what the IRS is doing now. They're increasing their audits of individuals as a means to collect additional revenue. And they're putting burdens on people. For example, if you own rental real estate, you're considering getting into that. If you hire somebody to come out and work on your property, now you have to 1099 them if you pay them more than $600 in 1 year. Never used to have to do that. Now we're forcing putting the burden on the individual taxpayer to do more for the government because they can't do their job and get people to pay taxes. So they're going to say, we're going to draft all of you to report on them, make our job easier. And we'll collect money off of them and solve the issue. But it won't. So you have to appreciate this, and that's why when it comes to some of the planning we're going to be talking about, we take, I would say, a very conservative approach when it comes to structuring our clients. I mean, I have no problem looking in the gray area. Okay, that's fine. But you have to understand where the black and white area is as well. And there's certain lines we do not cross. And so you may have questions about offshore strategies. I won't be covering offshore at all. And it's not to say that offshore is bad, but from my experience in offshore, there are some people who take the approach that it's wink, wink, nod, nod. If it's over there in another island, then it's not mine. I don't have to report it because I didn't earn it. Okay, that's going to get you a one-way ticket to an orange jumpsuit and a cell with Bubba if you want to go down that road. And I can tell people who've ended up there. So we choose not to engage in certain types of transactions that we feel as a firm are risky for us. And it's because of our own lack of knowledge as well. I know where my knowledge lies, and I'm not going to step outside of my comfort zone. All right, so why does a lot of this happen to individuals? Well, number one, procrastination. Okay, you think about something too long, oftentimes it becomes its undoing. And that we just think, hey, we'll just wait. We'll worry about this issue at a later date. Well, taking that approach might get you into trouble. There's a great story that Greg tells a lot of times about an individual that called him up. See, we taught a seminar, workshop to some real estate investors on asset protection. We sat down with them. We told them, you need to, this one individual, you need to do this, this, and this, and protect yourself. Because if you wait and you get involved in a lawsuit, it's too late. That horse has left the barn at that point in time, and we're not bringing him back in the corral. He's gone. There's nothing we can do for you. So this individual chose to wait. He gets home. Next week, Greg gets this call from this individual. We'll call him John. John says, hey, Greg. Now, when somebody whispers to you and you're on a phone, you say, what's up, John? He goes, do you hear that, Greg? He goes, no, John, why are you whispering? Because there's somebody outside my door. Hey, we know you're in there. Open up. He goes, well, John, let's just talk normal. What's going on? He said, hey, somebody's outside my door and they have papers and they're trying to serve me. What should I do, Greg? We need to get asset protection in place. John, didn't we just have that conversation 4 days ago? Yeah, so let's put it together now before I answer the door. What do you think our response to that was? Too late. Can't help you there, John. Go answer the door. But they're going to serve me. Well, that's fine. If they don't serve you there, they're going to serve you at work. So if you're going to get served, you might as well get served at home. So the only people that know about it are you, and hopefully your neighbors aren't looking outside the door. What's going on over there, John? What's that guy want to do to you? So as long as that's not happening, we're fine. Just take it, okay, and deal with it. But if you wait too long and procrastinate, then you can find yourself in problems when it comes to asset protection and also with taxes. People procrastinate with planning for their taxes at the end of the year. We see a lot of people come to us in December, and they say, Clint, I would really need some tax help now. I said, okay, you giving me 20 days to put together a comprehensive tax plan for you for 2010? Do you really think we can do something in 20 days, this should have started in January. But instead, many individuals, when they contact us, wait till December. And we can't do much for somebody at that point in time because it's taken too long. So that is a problem. That's what stops people from moving forwards, we found. All right. Before we get into when do you need protection, let's do this. Let's take a 10-minute break. Got some coffee over there, and you got water, and then we'll start up again here in 10 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to use Bob, Greg, or myself. We're here as a resource. So, the question, when do you need protection? This always comes up. Every call I have with somebody. Do I really need protection now? So do you need it now before you make it? Or do you need it after you've made it? Before. Well, that's first. Most people say now. Why do you say before? Back row? Because if you don't have it now, you won't be able to get it then. I think I know where you're going. Let's put this in a different context. What's your name? Doug. Oh, yeah. Doug, the loser of the dinar. Doug Dinarless. Here. So, Doug did not lose his, well, actually, Doug did lose his dinar. Clint found it. Clint's worth $10 million. Doug is worth $100,000. We'll give him some, okay? Because I found one to note, then I gave it back to him. So he's worth $100,000. I'm worth $10 million. And we're both sued for $1 million. Who has more to lose? Any idea? Who has more to lose, Doug or Clint? Clint. Okay, let me put it to you different. This is what people think. They say, well, Clint does because he has $10 million. We're sued. Each of us are sued for $1 million. So let's assume they're successful. Doug, you pay $1 million. You're worth $100,000. How much do you have left? You've got a $900,000 judgment that's going to follow you around for the rest of your life. Clint has $10 million. He pays $1 million. How much does he have left? $9 million. So, is Doug in a better position or is Clint in a better position? Clint, because I got $9 million. Who needed protection more, Clint or Doug? Doug, because he wanted to keep his $100,000. I can spare $1 million. He can't spare $1. But we become so conditioned by CPAs that you don't need protection until you get to these places where you have $10 million that people often assume that that is the appropriate way for asset protection planning. And I run into these CPAs when people will go back with the structure I created and show it to their CPA, and I get on the phone with them. You start saying, well, I've got 5 clients that do something similar, and not one of them have ever been sued yet. Okay, well, so since it hasn't happened, that means we shouldn't plan. Yeah. Well, have you ever been in a car accident before? Never. Good, then I assume you don't carry car insurance, because why should you if you're never going to be in a car accident? Well, that's different. Really? How so? That's when the conversation typically deteriorates at that point in time. Because I'm just using their logic, but it only works from their side to me. So it's after you made it, no, it's before you make it that you need it. Now what's the problem here? We find that people have fear of asset protection planning because they don't understand it. What do I refer to this as? Fear, false evidence appearing real. Okay? You do not understand where the risks lie. You don't understand what's there to protect you. And because of this fear, a lot of times people do not plan because they don't understand. All right, so let me talk about some myths here. Okay, we already addressed this. Only wealthy need protection. Number 2, okay, in this is that you're not likely to be sued. You know that the average individual will be sued 5 times during their life? 5 times. My father, he's already been past that. He was involved in a lot of lawsuits when I was growing up. He had 0 protection. His father was an attorney. My grandfather never once told my father to create some entities to protect himself, to discourage lawsuits, because my grandfather did not specialize in asset protection. He didn't understand it. He was a general practitioner, focused mainly on personal injury, wills, and divorce. He did set up corporations and stuff occasionally for people, but it wasn't his forte. So it wasn't at the top of his thinking when he sat down and worked with someone. So my dad would be involved in lots of lawsuits, I remember as a child. Now, when we look at this number, 5 lawsuits, I'll put it in perspective for you. My mother-in-law, she waited. She waited until I got out of law school. And then she said, happy time, lawsuit accelerator, let's go. 5 lawsuits in the last 14 years. And who's had a defender every single time? I have. You know what the worst part about it is? She owes our law firm $60,000 in fees. How much have I collected, Tammy? Why is that? Why would you say nothing? How do you know? What? Yeah, that was in the marriage clause. I didn't read the back page of the marriage agreement in the fine point 8 font. I think my mother-in-law and my wife work for insurance companies because it said right there, she showed me, hey, if mother-in-law needs help, Clint, you do it for free. And I have. And it's crazy stuff that my mother-in-law does because she knows she gets it for free. She doesn't think, she just does. I mean, the major case that I dealt with her on, she built a garage 5 feet over the property line on the neighbor's property. You're good people. You're shaking your head saying that's all wrong. You shouldn't do that. Not my mother-in-law. Because neighbor found, this is where it gets really interesting. You know how the neighbor found out? Because my mother-in-law lives right next door to her twin brother. See, I think the brain power there was split when they were born. And twin brother one day got mad at twin sister. And so he went over to the neighbor on the other side of twin sister and said, hey, my sister built a garage on your property. Neighbor said, how do you know, twin brother? He goes, I helped build it. Which he did. I told my mother-in-law she should have that property surveyed prior to building it. No, she was going to do it her way. There's no way of telling her otherwise. Okay, she's very strong-headed. But then, when the neighbor sued, she comes crying on my doorstep. She goes, help me. Why? You did something wrong. No, I didn't. I said you built on their property, but it's not wrong. Why is it not wrong? Because they ain't using it. How's them logics right there, huh? Gosh. So, here's where I'm going with that. So I defend her. And worst part about a lawsuit, have you ever been involved in one? You know what? Well, one of the worst things about it is the fees. The other party had spent probably about $45,000, $50,000 by the time we get to deposition. Because I'm just thinking maybe I can get this on an adverse possession. I'll just drag it out long enough and the other side will finally give up and maybe settle and we can buy it from her. But no, wasn't going to happen. They were going for it the whole step of the way. But eventually, when somebody on the other side doesn't have to pay and you're shelling out $4,000 a month to an attorney and it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, that starts to gnaw at you. And we're in a deposition. And I look over at opposing counsel and his client. I said, you know, time out. Ma'am, did your counsel inform you that you can't collect attorney's fees at the end even if you're successful? They're not provided for in this state or by statute. And did he also inform you that I really don't do this for a living. I just do this because I have to, because she's my mother-in-law and I'm not charging her, and that my job is asset protection. I've structured in such a way that even if you are successful, you won't get anything? Right about then, fireworks happen. The other attorney, you can't be talking to my client that way. I don't care. At that point in time, cat's out of the bag. Once that's out, we settled 3 weeks later. She had to cut her garage back, of course, but all this other nonsense about $100,000 in damages and paying attorney's fees, that's all went away. And there was truth in that if they had been successful, we're not going to be able to recover against my mother-in-law because I had already set her up in a manner that would protect her against individuals. Because I saw the problems, the writing on the wall when I got married, that she's going to do what she's going to do. So, not likely to be sued? Not likely. All right, so insurance will protect me. We talked about that. Insurance will not protect you. Okay, here's the example. Is your insurance leaving you exposed? Here's what it doesn't protect against. Multi-million-dollar claims, average insurance policy. Okay, you're typically covered to $500,000, some people $750,000. The average claim or judgment is typically $1 million. So there's a gap there that you have to make up the difference with. Environmental claims. If you ever buy real estate, be extremely concerned about environmental claims. Environmental claims is when they find stuff in the ground. You live next to water, stuff that's leached into the water, you're responsible. Doesn't matter if you didn't do it. The fact is, you own the property, you have to clean it up. I have a client right now in Gig Harbor. I structured her about 8 years ago. She's being sued for $2.5 million over an environmental claim right now on a piece of property that she owned 30 years ago. So how's that for things in the past coming back to bite you today? Now, I've told her, I'm not representing her in this, a friend of mine is, and he's a litigation attorney, but he's of the mindset, hey, this is a client, this client will pay me an hourly fee, so I'm going to fight it. Because he called me up and said, hey, she's being sued for environmental claim. And I first asked him, well, she kept everything in place and did what I said, got a HELOC on the house, got the LLC we set up for her, all her cash is in the LLC, pull that money out of the house. What do we got to worry about? He goes, well, we have to do certain things. I said, I wouldn't. I would just call up the other side and say, so what? Bring it your best shot. There's nothing for you to collect anyways. But unfortunately, what's going to happen is she's going to probably pay my friend probably about $15,000 to $20,000, and at the end of the day, she's going to be in the same situation. She'll end up settling with them because they're going to look at her assets. They're going to realize there's nothing for them to collect against. I'm maybe more cavalier on that, but if you set it up right, it doesn't matter. You can bring that claim against me because there's nothing for you to recover against because there's nothing for you to attach. That's very important when it comes to asset protection. But environmental claims will leave you exposed. Business failures, insurance won't cover that. Bankruptcies, you won't be covered there. IRS audits, contractual disputes, bank deficiency judgments, okay? These are things that insurance does not cover. You know, talking about banks, for instance, here. I know a lot of people are concerned about banks, about a bank going under. You know, if you have a loan with a bank and they're concerned about their overall risk exposure on that loan, they can take your account from you. It's happened to some of my clients that were in real estate. They've lost their accounts. One client of mine in particular is fighting a bank in Montana right now who took $2 million out of his account. One day he has $2 million in the account. The next day he wakes up, he goes to pull some money out of it. It's all gone. Calls the bank up and says, hey, I think there's been fraud. Somebody stole my money. Bank says, no fraud. We took your money. That's not fraudulent. Well, why would you do that? Well, we were concerned about that loan that you might not be able to bring this project to completion, so we took that as collateral now. He said, well, okay, well, can I get and I need to then draw on my construction loan? Oh, no, we've cut that off as well because we're concerned about this project. Well, how am I supposed to bring this project to completion? That's your problem, not ours, but if you don't move along on it, we're going to foreclose. And then they started foreclosure proceedings on him. Now he's in litigation with the bank over the bank taking this $2 million without notice. But it just goes to show you what can happen in a blink of an eye. If somebody were to sue, if I were to sue you and get a judgment against you, the first thing I would do, if you had money in your own name, I would garnish your bank account. That's the easiest way to get paid. People don't understand it. That is catnip to attorneys. If you keep money in your account, your personal bank account, because all I have to do is serve that judgment on the bank and they will hold those funds for me. They will not distribute them to you. Because if they do, I get the money from the bank then. So banks are a risk to hold a lot of money in there. Forget about the bank going under. If you got sued, they'll just hold all your funds for your creditor. So you got to be careful. All right, so the idea here is to judgment-proof yourself. I like this picture. The reason I put it up there is because the guy's standing around going, hey, man, I got nothing. What are you going to take from this individual if he pulls his pockets out and there's nothing there because nothing is in his own name that the creditor can attach? The answer to that is typically there's nothing to get. You're not going to get paid. And so you have to understand that you can put yourself in that situation. You do not want to find yourself in this situation. What is this? It's a lawsuit. Anybody here been sued before? You have? Greg, what was it like? Did it feel like this? Feel like you're staring down the barrel of a gun? You had a good... Really? Is there such a thing? Was he honest? What's the difference between lawyer and liar, Greg? It's pronunciation. Yeah, you don't want an honest attorney. So, there's key words here.
What was it that he said?
You don't want an honest attorney. Because, I mean, they'll come in, they'll say whatever. Well, Your Honor, our position is liar, liar. When I used to represent, I worked on the defense side as well, my third year of law school, so I did it all. And every guy I represented, because I got to go in as a Rule 9 intern into court, and I was able to handle my own trials and represent people, and because the attorney I worked for had the municipal docket for 2 little counties there, or cities. They were all guilty. And if they weren't guilty of what they were accused of, they were guilty of so many other things, they all needed to be put in jail. But I had to defend them. And so every time I would talk to the judge, I'd say, Your Honor, the defendant has informed me. And I told him ahead of time, whenever you hear that, it means that I am now telling you this is a lie. It's a BS. And I don't believe what he's told me at all. And I had a very poor rate of getting people off, I'll tell you that. You know. All my guys went to jail. Nobody wanted Clint to represent them. It's because I didn't want him around. I was a free attorney, and these guys would pull out these little fancy cell phones, start talking on them, doing their drug deals or whatever they'd be doing. I'm looking at him going, what do you mean, you need me, but you can afford that $500 phone? Something's not right here. Yeah. So, where were we? We're talking about Greg being sued. Was it not like being staring down a gun, though, when you got served that first day? Yeah, make you uncomfortable? What's the worst part about a lawsuit? What's that? The unknown. That's right. Martha, is it? Ruth Ann. It's the emotional factor. Money, yeah, that's expensive. We understand that. Attorneys don't work for free. But it's the emotional factor of not knowing where that lawsuit is going to go and how much you're at risk for is what gets people. And I can guarantee you the first thing that goes through somebody's mind when they're being sued is, how much do I have at risk? How much can they take from me if they're successful? You go ask your attorney, hey, is this a frivolous case? Can we win? And he'll say, yeah, we'll win. You guarantee that? Well, there's no guarantees in law. Let me explain to you that, because it's always going to be a jury pool. If it's made up of Clint's mother-in-laws, and there's no guarantees for sure. She loves to serve on jury duty. She thinks it's like Jerry Springer's show. She runs down the courthouse, pick me, pick me. Literally, she's on jury duty probably 4 times a year. I don't know how she does it. So when you get sued, the first thing that's going to go through your mind is, what is at risk? Do I stand to lose? Because they're going to take it. They get a judgment against you. They get to bring you into supplemental proceedings, and they get to ask you what it is you own. And you have to tell them. You cannot lie, because now you're under oath. You don't have to tell them ahead of time. But once they got a judgment against you, then they get to find out what it is that you own, and that's where the risk lies right there, because if you have dinar, you're going to have to disclose that. I've got 10 million dinar. Really? Where's that held? And you have to tell them where it's at. It's in your own name, then it's exposed. You do not want to get yourself in that situation, because number one, as I stated, it's extremely emotional. Has anybody been deposed before? No? You've never been deposed? Don't want to be deposed. Why not?
Because of what I've seen on TV.
Yeah. It's literally like that. She says what she's seen on TV. When you depose somebody, okay, you're going in to battle. With my mother-in-law, when I deposed her twin brother, okay, we walked in. I mean, he thought we were friends. I never really liked the guy because I saw him as a user. And when we walked into that deposition, it was all giggles and aw shucks and this and that. Let's go to lunch afterwards because I was deposing him. Well, during that deposition, at one point, he got up and he was going to take a swing at me, and they had to remove him from the room. Another time, he was crying like a baby in front of me. And then when he left the room, it went on for about 6 hours, this deposition, he told me he was going to have me disbarred. And to this day, he's always telling my wife, I could have him disbarred for the questions he asked me. He can't. But, you know, he's a big talker, but I did my job, which is to go in and interrogate him and ask him questions that are way beyond the bounds, because I wanted to get him in an emotional state so we could get the truth out of him, because he was a liar. And I would start off questions like this. Greg, you want to role play with me? Come on. Is your wife here? Hold on to that. Hold on to that thought. Greg, how long have you been married? 17 years. 17 years. Okay. When were you married? What's the date of your marriage? March 26, 17 years ago. Hey, you're close. I mean, most times guys don't get the March. It doesn't matter the year, does it? Just as long as you got the day. Yeah. All right. You have any kids? Two? How old are they? Wow. One's out of the house and one's almost there. Yeah, which one's out of the house? Okay. Great. Where's she going to school? You still be unfaithful to your wife? Never have been. Well, when did you quit cheating on your taxes? Never have. Can I ask him those questions? Absolutely. All right, give Greg a hand, guys. He did a good job there. Thanks. I got a book for you, Greg. There's a book in the back called Tax-Wise Business Ownership. I'll give that to you as soon as we're done here for playing along with me. All right, so this is the thing. Lawsuits, they're designed to scare you. They're designed to take from you. And you have to understand there's ways to protect yourself because you don't know where it's going to come from. You're a threat. How many people still have young children at home? Okay, several of you. You think they're a threat? Really? Like, what could they do to you? Come on. They could get you sued for doing what? Being stupid. Okay, yeah, well, that pretty much classifies all teenagers in that one, doesn't it? Hey, Clint, I created the most liability for my father than anybody could ever done in his entire life. He doesn't know it. I've never told him. But when I was a kid, you know, high schoolers, what are high schoolers going to do even though you tell them they shouldn't do it and you don't want them doing it? Drink, right? And drive. And hopefully not drinking your beer. So when I was in high school, I used to have to drive to Wildcat Lake, which was 30 miles away in order to buy beer because this store was out in the middle of nowhere and you had to drive 35 miles an hour all the way out there and 35 miles an hour back. So it would take you approximately 2 hours because you're not going to drive over the speed limit if you've got beer because you'd walk into that store and say, "Are you 21, Clint?" "Yes, I am." "Okay, here you go." Don't tell them where you got it. Never would. So I realized after driving this 2-hour round trip that I can do better than that. Hey, I'm a future attorney. Think like an attorney, Clint. Your dad has apartment buildings. He has apartment managers. You're down there every weekend working for him. You get to know them. Why not go to your dad's apartment managers and ask them to buy you beer? And that's what I started doing. So I would go and have my dad apartment managers purchase beer for me. And, you know, I then figured out, why am I going to buy it? Because my friends are in the same boat. They don't want to drive 2 hours. So I invited some of my good, close friends with me. And I said, listen, it's my dad's apartment manager. I know him. You guys have to pay for me. And we all get beer. Now, we drank really cheap beer because when I went to my dad's apartment manager, he would say, "Okay, I'm going to buy you beer, but for every case I buy you, you have to buy me a case." So I grew up drinking Lucky brand beer, which is like $4 a case. Didn't impress any girls when you brought that to a party. But anyways, the point of the story is that when I wouldn't be able to go out, I made this introduction to my dad's apartment manager. My friends started going to him, my dad's apartment manager, to buy beer. Luckily, nobody ever got hurt. But if somebody would have been involved in an accident, where do you think that liability would have came back to roost? Right on my father. My father was not protected. I wasn't thinking. I mean, I only saw what was right in front of my face. Here's an opportunity. This is going to create this much for me, you know. People are going to like it. Let's go for it. Didn't see the long-term implications of engaging in that type of activity because we're young, we're immature, and that's why we don't give children assets at 16 years of age or at 18 years of age. We tell them, until you can establish maturity, maybe when you're 45 or 60, we will give you those assets. And so you understand that risk, liability, you can't predict it. So what you can do is protect against the unknown. And the way we protect against the unknown, especially with Denars, I have recommended that you create a limited liability company to protect your investment.